I'll hand over to David and then I'll have a few more questions and a few more statements and then I'll take some questions.
Thanks, Peter, and good morning, everyone. Well, we know we can't rely on social media companies to enforce age limits to protect kids, so we're going to force them to. This issue is one of the defining issues of our era. If we went back 20 years ago and we said, here's what we're going to do, we're going to create a situation where any child can communicate with any random adult anywhere on earth who can provide pretty much whatever material they want to them, we would have said, well, we can't do that. That would be a disaster. And yet that's what's happened. And the social media companies have let Australian families down because they don't enforce age limits. The age limit of 13 is clearly too young in the first place. And secondly, they don't enforce it. And this is a totemic issue in the Australian community. The data that we're seeing in relation to the mental health of Australian kids is really disturbing, especially relating to girls. If you look at things like the self-harm, rates of self-harm hospitalisations of girls over the last decade, we've seen dramatic increases in that. And there's no question in my mind that social media is playing a significant part in that. So the option of leaving things as they are is completely untenable. There is no scenario where the social media companies will do the right thing, and so we're going to force them to. It's the right thing to do, and we hope that the government will get behind this. This shouldn't be a partisan issue. I think every parent worries about this, and so it doesn't matter what your political views are, I think, on this issue. This is something that we should all be able to come together, get behind this, and force the social media companies to do the right thing.
Thanks, David. There's another really important issue for our country today, and that is the thuggish behaviour of the militant unions like the CFMEU. Don't forget that the CFMEU has been before the courts on literally hundreds of occasions with charges and allegations of bullying and all sorts of cases, frankly, that have been proved. Imposition of penalties and very dramatic ones has been, commonplace for the CFMEU because they conduct themselves outside of the law. And I think that the Prime Minister really needs to stand up to John Setka. We know the CFMEU donates $4.5 million a year to the Labor Party, but the Prime Minister needs to stand up for Australians and to stand up against this bullying. The Prime Minister would be the first out of the blocks, as any of us would, to condemn bullying in the workplace. Well, we've now got a union leader and a very powerful union leader within the Labor movement who's out there trying to intimidate the Australian Football League. And so the AFL shouldn't be subject to these sorts of scandalous threats. And good on them for standing up and pushing back against John Setka and the other militant unions, including the ETU, who have joined this outrageous call. I think it's unbelievable that we haven't heard from Tony Burke or Annika Wells, the Sports Minister. Do they condone this sort of conduct and behaviour that we're seeing at the moment? It doesn't have any place in our country. The unions serve a useful role, but not when there are standover merchant tactics and bullying tactics to try and get outcomes that they seek. So I think the Prime Minister, when he stands up later today, he failed to do it yesterday. He should stand up and condemn these actions because, as we know, at least in some part, the building crisis in our country is attributable to the actions of the CFMEU. From some reports, productivity on building sites controlled by the CFMEU is down to about 2.8 days per week. And it's no wonder that we're paying exorbitant prices for new home units, for aged care facilities. We're not getting as much bang for our taxpayer dollar in terms of road funding and infrastructure funding. And the Prime Minister allows the CFMEU just to run riot through the Australian economy. It's completely unacceptable. I'm happy to take any questions.